There has been no greater honor for me than to stand on the House floor and say, I speak for the people of San Francisco. That is why I want you, my fellow San Franciscans, to be the first to know. I will not be seeking re-election to Congress. With a grateful heart, I look forward to my final year of service as your proud representative.
Well, it's official. After nearly 40 years representing San Francisco, former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi will not be running for re-election.
She leaves behind a complex legacy, the first woman to be Speaker of the House, one of the key advocates of the Affordable Care Act, the target of millions of dollars of campaign ads vilifying her, and perhaps the single most important Democrat who pushed then-President Biden to drop out of the 2024 race. Her decision comes following a fall last year during a meeting in Europe where she fractured her hip. And of course there was the devastating incident 3 years ago in which a man broke into her home and beat her husband Paul with a hammer. Following the announcement, praise poured in from all sides of the Democratic Party. Former President Barack Obama posted on X, for almost 4 decades, Nancy Pelosi has served the American people and worked to make our country better. No one was more skilled at bringing people together and getting legislation passed, and I will always be grateful for her support of the Affordable Care Act. She made us proud to be Democrats and will go down in history as one of the best speakers the House of Representatives has ever had.
And even some Republicans offered praise for the former speaker. Take a listen to Marjorie Taylor Greene last night on CNN.
I will praise Nancy Pelosi. She had an incredible career for her party. I served under her speakership in my first term of Congress, and I'm very impressed at her ability to get things done. I wish we could get things done for our party like Nancy Pelosi was able to deliver for her party.
But many of Pelosi's critics viewed her as symbolic of the internal issues in Congress. Professional bowler Brian Voss summing up much of the online criticism on X, writing, Nancy Pelosi will go down in the history books as the greatest insider trader of all time. She made millions off of normal people. The fact that it's illegal and she got away with it reeks of other members of Congress doing the same thing. Good riddance. As for the president, he didn't mince words. Take a listen.
I'm glad she's retiring. I think she did the country a great service by retiring. I think she was a tremendous liability for the country.
And on Dick Cheney?
I thought she was an evil woman who did a poor job, who cost the country a lot in damages and in reputation. I thought she was terrible.
Don't think he likes her much.
No, it doesn't sound like it.
No. Look, I mean, I think we can get on to the stock trading thing in a second for sure. I think that, to be fair to Marjorie Taylor Greene, I think she was reasonably accurate in her portrayal there. Nancy Pelosi is liked generally by Democrats and Liberals because she was effective at getting stuff done. We mentioned the Affordable Care Act in the introduction, that she was really pivotal in getting through Congress. The Dodd-Frank financial reform she was also a big driver of, and she was often, pretty ruthless in the way she dealt with her own conference, and that was one of the things that enabled her to get stuff done. It was her who stepped up where others would not when Biden was ailing both politically and seemingly cognitively in the wake of that debate. She came to the fore more than others did in really pushing for him to step down. I think she was right in that. I mean, I know she has got some criticism from within, certainly from within Biden loyalists for doing it, but to my mind, she calculated correctly that he at that point was certain to lose the 2024 election and somebody else would have at least some kind of chance. And she did what needed to be done. So very effective. I think Republicans and Conservatives generally dislike her because of things she was effective in getting done, but that's just an ideological difference.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, obviously, I have deep issues with the Affordable Care Act, and then when she ripped up Trump's State of the Union speech, I thought that was a really bad look. But as a political tactician, she was obviously an A-lister, right? Mm-hmm. She was able to keep her conference in line even as these new progressives started coming into the fold. She really was able to maneuver with the squad and keep them voting with the Democrats on really major issues and keeping them in the fold, really. She was able to keep the Democrats constantly united around whatever the policy issue of the day was. And as we see over the past few years, the issues that Republicans have had with having a strong speaker, whether it's Mike Johnson, who I think has been the best of the recent picks, or Kevin McCarthy, they've had serious problems with just getting their various ideological factions to agree on pretty much anything. And Pelosi was able to do that. And so just from a political standpoint, she obviously was incredibly effective. And in pushing Biden out, right? Like whatever you think her motivation was, if it was just because she thought he was going to lose the election, the poll numbers were bad, she still managed to use her influence to achieve that. So I think there's sort of a begrudging respect from a lot of conservatives who probably hated pretty much everything that she was able to accomplish, but recognized that from her political maneuvering and strategy, that she was very, very good at her job.
Yeah, exactly. And that first stint as Speaker was either immediately succeeded or preceded by John Boehner. And to your point about like Republican difficulty in corralling their conference, there was a very clear contrast at that time between Pelosi, who among other elements of her political tactician skills is an incredibly good vote counter, and Boehner, who would bring these measures to the floor, and then a few Republicans would rebel and sink it and be all kind of embarrassing for all concerned. Now, I don't want to filibuster the stock trading issue. I would say that I don't like the fact that members of Congress at all are allowed to trade stocks. I think it obviously opens up the possibility to insider trading. She's not, in fact, the best, I think it's Unusual Whales is the site that traces lawmaker trading. And she's, in fact, I think 5th or 6th in the rankings at the moment. So she's not the best of all time. But I don't want to be defending the system that allows it to take place.
Yeah, I mean, her net worth increased by 3,000% while she was in Congress since she started serving 40 years ago. And a lot of that is due to her stock portfolio. And we have seen this on both sides of the aisle, unfortunately, where there's some policy change that happens and, Pelosi or whoever it is, Dan Crenshaw, dumps their stock conveniently before that comes through. And we saw it during COVID, where a lot of members of Congress started investing very heavily in pharmaceutical companies before Americans were aware of how severe the pandemic was going to be. And it is such a failure to allow such open corruption in Congress, no matter who does it. And Pelosi definitely was able to enrich herself pretty heavily by engaging in those practices.
And also, much as I admire her in a whole range of areas, some of her least impressive moments were in defending the ability of congressional members to do that. She at one point seemed to suggest that if you were against members of Congress trading stocks, you were against capitalism in some way. And it's like, no, I don't think that's really true.
Or Dan Crenshaw, who said that they need to pay us more if they don't want us to trade stocks.
Right. It's like, I don't think that's really how it works at all. And in fact, it is interesting the way the opposition to that congressional stock trading has now encompassed a huge range of, AOC to like Josh Hawley. So it curbing that has a lot of support.
Yeah. I'm also curious if Pelosi retiring kind of changes the trajectory of a Democratic caucus that has had a lot of people unfortunately pass away while serving, whether it was Dianne Feinstein or Jerry Connolly, and there's been a few lower level members as well. Maybe she's sort of sending a signal like, guys, get out when it's time.
Yeah, there's definitely pressure for generational change in the Democratic Party. So, there's lots of instances of that, whether it's AOC or Mamdani getting elected. It's not just ideology, it's a desire for a new energy and more vitality, I think.
And now Republicans will have to find a new boogeyman.
That's right.
Pelosi was the face of advertisements.
Absolutely.
Even when she wasn't running in any race. So maybe Mamdani's the new boogeyman, I don't know. But
Zoran Mamdani's the new Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah, I guess so. We'll have to see what happens there. All right, next on Rising, over 800 flights have been canceled across the country today as airports follow an FAA mandate to limit air traffic amidst the government shutdown. Don't go anywhere.